You're listening to Houston. Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
And welcome to Houston Sports Talks Live, Astros-Mariners Postgame Show. Robert Land alongside Stephen Kerr. And oh my God, do we have a lot to talk about, Stephen? Between the two of us, 60 years combined in sports journalism. We've watched Astros baseball for a combined 100 years, or just 2 hours shorter than this game, Stephen. And I waited for Marwin to end the game, or George Springer, or Billy Hatcher, or Chris Burke, but they couldn't do it, so it had to be Jeremy Pena.
Jeremy, meet Chris Burke. Chris, meet Jeremy, and move over in the boat and make room, because people are going to be talking about Jeremy's home run for a long time, just like they talk about yours from 2005. 60 years. You know, you think between us, Robert, we'd seen everything. But obviously not.
Do we say they won this series in 3 games or in 4 games?
Well, they played the equivalent of 4 games. I think I even tweeted, it's like, I didn't know the Astros were playing a doubleheader. Ernie Banks would be proud, wouldn't he? Would pull out another name from the past. Let's play 2.
I was thinking that. I mean, oh my goodness. And, you know, all I have to say to Jeremy Pena is Carlos Correa would have won the game 9 innings earlier. So you suck, Jeremy Pena.
You suck, Jeremy. You waited too long. Yeah, I saw that tweet, Robert. That was great.
I don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess the first thing I want to talk about, one of my points when they were deciding the postseason pitchers was the benefit of having starting pitchers like Garcia and Hunter Brown over Phil Maton and Will Smith. And Stephen, I couldn't have predicted this insanity, but the Astros' top 5 relievers are plenty rested because they only had to go 1 inning in this crazy mess.
Well, yeah, and that's right, Robert. And you may not have predicted it, but the Astros certainly set themselves up for something just like this if it happens. And just think, Jose Urquidy, you know, he was tossing, he was ready just in case, but he didn't even get in the game. That was the only hope left, unless, of course, you wanted to dig into Christian Javier, and you weren't going to do that if there was going to be a game 4, because either he or Justin Verlander would have started. So, you know, the fact that it played out the way it did, when you make these rosters, you never know. But boy, it just all fell so well into the Astros' hands, the way they set up this pitching staff. And Luis Garcia, I mean, you know, everybody pitched well, obviously, for the Astros, but I'm telling you, Luis Garcia was bringing it, Robert. Did you see his velocity was like, his fastball was 97, 98? I mean, when I saw that, I was like, man, this guy's on, and he could pitch a few innings, and he certainly did. But he's just one of so many that came through, at least, you know, from the pitching standpoint today.
Yeah, if you look behind me somewhere, let me see if it's there and people can see it. But right over my right shoulder, I think you'll see my Yuli Guriel bobblehead that my nieces got me, the Yuli bobblehead from the Astros game this year. And, you know, he was DOA, dead on arrival, about 2 or 3 months ago. We were like, yeah, it's time. His career is over with. Forget Yuli Guriel. And, you know, there were some people that were like, yeah, let's bench him now that we got Mancini. And, you know, that was the sort of the prevailing thought, is that Yuli was going to be out of the lineup and he was going to be a bench player. And I'm sure I was part of that. You know, I was one of those people that's thinking maybe, yeah, I mean, as much as I love Yuli, you know, this looks like it's over with. But oh my God, what would they have done with that Yuli Guriel in this lineup in the postseason? Outside of Jordan, he's the MVP for the Astros as far as hitters go. I mean, maybe Bregman, I don't know, but he's in the mix.
Yeah, he certainly is in the mix. And I know, you know, Yuli's getting up there in age a bit. And I did say a few months ago that, you know, whether it's at the trade deadline or somewhere in the near future, the Astros really need to start thinking about first base. Because let's face it, I mean, yes, Yuli's having a great postseason, but it's still something they need to think about, just not right now, because he is hitting again and coming through just when the Astros need him to.
Couple of comments. Hello to our friend Brandy, who said Jeremy Pena is a star. And Raphael said, Stephen, I was running out of beers. I mean, that's huge.
Running out of beers, man. You can't have that. I hope you didn't have a whole bunch of people at your house, Raphael. You would be the goat in the wrong way, not the hero.
Oh, my goodness. Quick reminder to everybody to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. That's how you can support us. We've been doing this show. I've been doing this show for 9 years. Stephen co-hosted for 3 years. He's helping me out with the Astros postgame. He'll be, here in and out. Sean Bajani is now my official co-host, but we have guests. It's a big mix, and I've been running this thing for 9 years. And when we started, I always tell people it was 2013. The Astros were one of the worst teams in baseball history. They had lost 3 100-game seasons. It was a disaster. And now it's just moment after moment like this in the postseason. And add Jeremy Pena to the mix. And Stephen, you and I said off the top, 100 years we've been watching Astros baseball. I mean, let me go back. I saw Billy Hatcher's home run in my bedroom in Sharpstown, Houston, Texas, when I was, a sophomore in high school. I was watching the game at school. They had it on one of the televisions at school. That's how old I am. And then I get home and I watched the end of the Billy Hatcher game. I was there in the building for Chris Burke. Unfortunately, I was covering for the media. I was talking about this with Sean the other day on the podcast about how, I was I had to be down by the clubhouse because I was shooting post game and I had to be ready as soon as the game was over with. So I'm watching it from the media room instead of actually seeing it in front of me. And it's, it's a different experience. You're not allowed to do all the cheering and stuff like that when you're, covering the game.
No cheering in the press box, as they say. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. I have, let me throw it to Richard Sanchez, who says he's been up since 5 a.m., was fighting my sleep for 5 hours. Go Stros.
Way to hang in there, Richard. Way to hang in there, man.
Didn't the game start at 4 a.m.? How was he only up at 5 a.m.?
It sure seemed like it. I mean, what did it start at 2 p.m., I guess? But it seems like it was at 4 a.m. It was so many hours ago. And if you're not into pitchers duels, you probably were thinking about falling asleep. But honestly, Robert, I know it was frustrating watching inning after inning. The Astros struck out a bunch in this game, a bunch. And most all of them, if not all of them, were swinging strikes. So, it has to be frustrating inning after inning, seeing both teams just, taking their cuts or watching pitches go by and just not hitting. But you can't take away the great pitching that was in this game. I mean, on both sides, it was just absolutely incredible. And you were talking about the Billy Hatcher game. Of course, that was in the '86 playoff game against the Mets. I was living by myself. I think I was in my mid-20s, and I was unemployed at the time. I wasn't even working. I was trying to get a radio job, and I was living in a house here in Austin. And I remember, Robert, I got so frustrated at one point. I don't know if it was the 13th, 14th inning. I turned the game off, took a shower, got out of the shower, and decided, no, I can't stay away. Turned it back on, and the game was still going on. And I made it just in time, though. I did see Hatcher's home run before that. But that was a game that, man, the Astros didn't win it. But gosh, it's still a game that we talk about to this day just because of the back and forth. And then, of course, the Chris Burke, game you mentioned, the Astros did win that game in 2005. That's something we'll never stop talking about either. So this one is right up there, man. It's right up there.
Yeah, and the Billy Hatcher game was 36 years ago today, Stephen.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's on the very day that happened that we have this. I mean, history is so interesting, Robert. You say history can't, or sometimes repeats itself. Well, it did in a way, but thank goodness it didn't repeat itself with a loss this time.
So are you ready to go through some of the plays from this game? Because we're going to be here for a while.
Well, can I go get my pizza that's waiting for me first? I don't know how my pizza's like frozen by now. I think it's been waiting so long, but by all means, let's go through this thing.
Oh my God. Where do we start? Well, a couple singles by Tucker and Yuli in the top of the second. Wasn't enthused that Mancini was starting over Aledmus, and of course, Mancini strikes out on 3 pitches there. Good AB, though, for Chas, but he also struck out. Missed opportunity. We're going to get to another missed opportunity from Chas a little bit later, but bottom second, McCullers gives up a couple walks, but gets out of it with a strikeout. Good to see him, Stephen, using his changeup in big situations, and he got the changeup, to work for him right there.
He did, and he also used his slider to great effect too, especially with Julio Rodriguez. He threw him a bunch of sliders. Just about every pitch he threw to him was a slider. So yeah, the breaking pitches. I mean, Lance is famous for that, and he just. I was really confident with him going into this game, Robert. Confident in him getting the job done, just because he's looked good every start that he's come back from the Tommy John surgery. He's just gotten a little better. He runs into some trouble, but what pitcher doesn't? So yeah, it was great to see the breaking pitches working, and the slider too. So yeah, Lance got out of that little deal there and just kept on rolling.
One of our commenters, Delio Vallecilla, I hope I got that right. Delio Vallecilla says, "Am I the only one that feels like McCullers and Garcia earn a right to pitch and be the game 1 and game 2 starting pitchers of the ALCS?" I think there's a guy named Verlander and Fromber, and they've kind of earned the right, but I mean, you can't take away anything of what they did today. I mean, and they're they'll be pitching again. Trust me, in this playoffs.
Oh, you will see them. I don't know, game 1 and game 2. Now, if things had shaken out to where let's say the Astros won this game and game 1 of the next series started in a day or two, and McCullers or Garcia hadn't pitched, and somebody like Verlander or Valdez had pitched, in the winning game, then yeah, you'd have to go with one of those two for that. But no, the Astros are going to go with Verlander and Valdez in games 1 and 2, I'm sure.
Richard Sanchez says, "I think Altuve needs to talk to Fromber's sports psychologist. Never seen him struggle this bad." Stephen, it was rough this whole series, and he did, by the end of it, he kind of looked lost a little bit at the plate.
Well, he's looked lost this whole series, Robert. And I do remember and you probably do too, the 2015 playoff series against Kansas City. He really struggled. And I want to say there was even a time in 2017 where he had an 0 for 10 streak, but he, of course, got out of that and played pretty well. But yeah, this is very, very troubling that Jose Altuve is struggling. And, hitting slumps, the longer they go, I don't care how great of a player you are, you're going to keep pressing and pressing too hard. And I think a lot of it is that's what Altuve is doing. He looks lost, but obviously he's trying harder and harder to do something to get out of it. And sometimes that can be your downfall.
Let's go to the top of the 4th, because it was another opportunity for the Astros. 2 hit by pitches and a Tucker single loads the bases for Chas with 2 outs. He flies out to center at that point. He's 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position in his postseason career. Chas struggling, but I'm sorry, you got Jake Myers and you got Dubon.
Mauricio Dubon, yeah. And David Hensley. That's about all you've got. And what's funny about this, Robert, is 8 of the 12 Astros runs that they scored in the first 2 games of this series came with 2 outs. So, that certainly didn't happen today, but it's amazing how each game is so different that, the Astros and the Mariners, of course, couldn't get those runs across when they had them in scoring position.
So top 5, Maldonado singles, but no idea how in the world he gets doubled up on a routine pop up to first. Just a lack of focus, which was a killer since it didn't allow Yordan to get up that inning with a runner on. I mean, just a double killer.
Yeah, it was. And I don't know. He may have been trying to, I guess, cause some, lack of concentration with, the pop out to Altuve. Maybe he's trying to cause a lack of concentration among the fielders. But whatever it was, how often do you see Maldi make a running mistake like that? I mean, that could have been big. Thank God it wasn't.
It looked like he was paying too much attention to the ball and not enough attention to the bag, because he's kind of feeling his way out there. Like, where's the first base bag, where, just look down and make sure you don't want to screw that up in that situation. Yeah. It's just such a huge out right there, especially with the top of the order coming up. And especially that fact that, he's not a guy that normally gets on base anyway. So him on base was like a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that was the thing, is it turned into a double play. And so again, that could have been big if the Mariners had come right back in that next frame and scored, but they didn't.
Yeah, the pitching just fantastic. And I mean, I'm pretty much done with the first 6 or 7 innings. So Lance McCullers, because there's not a lot of action, but Lance McCullers, what can you say? I mean, a couple of months ago, we were worried, is he going to pitch again? Can he pitch this year? Is he going to be able to pitch well? Is he going to be ready for the postseason? And I mean, it's just a fantastic performance in his first postseason performance. The first time that we've seen him in the postseason since we got to go back a couple of years now.
2019. Yeah. 2020. And so, yeah, that's why I was saying, I just felt so good about him being in this game, Robert. And this is where the Astros pitching depth really comes into play, because we didn't have last year. We didn't have a healthy McCullers. We didn't have a healthy Verlander. Now we got both of those guys. And I think Dusty Baker even said that if McCullers had been in the postseason last year, the Astros would be the World Series champs. And he's probably right. I mean, we'll never know, but he very well could be right.
So we go to the top of the 7th. Yuli and Chas both single. So Chas with the hit. He gets it going a little bit, but Vasquez flies out. Not a good game for Vasquez. And then Altuve, again, strikeout. Still no hits at that point in the series. And of course, we know he never got one. He had another 11 innings to get one. And he didn't get one in the next 11 innings. So we go to the top 8. Steven Bregman doubles. Tucker strikes out, though. Yet another missed opportunity. They're 0 for 7 right there with runners.
Yeah, and Alvarez struck out in that sequence too.
So let's go to the bottom of the 8th. Montero gives up a double, but gets a strikeout to get out of it. The bullpen, I mean, just throwing up zeros, one after another, and Ryan Stanek, they got him out from behind the 18-wheeler with his, haircut. I love that picture of him behind the 18-wheeler, and he finally pitched, and he looked great.
I was beginning to wonder, is like Ryan Stanek did make the roster, didn't he? I mean, I was starting to go back and look at my roster just to make sure he was on it, Robert, because he hadn't been in this whole series, and it did make me wonder. I mean, he's one of your late inning setup guys. So the fact that when I saw that he was warming up, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief. Like, okay, well, he didn't get hurt, at the last minute. We just hadn't heard about it. He's there, and he finally got to pitch, and thank goodness, he got the job done too.
And the only guy that didn't pitch is pictured behind. Well, his book is pictured behind me. It's Larry Durker's book. I think he's the only Astro pitcher that did get in this game. But let's go to the top of the 9th, because Yuli with his 3rd hit of the game, Aledmus hit by pitch, Chas with the nice bunt. Like I said, the last couple at bats in the 9 innings, Chas did some things, but Vasquez with a huge strikeout because you had a chance for a sac fly there or something. And then Altuve, another strikeout. They're 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position at that. And really, that was their last chance, Stephen, for many. I mean, did they get a guy in scoring position? Maybe one. I think there was one player in scoring position until the Pena home run.
Yeah, I think they didn't get a hit, Robert, until I believe it was the 16th inning. Yeah, Bregman singled to left in the 16th. That was the Astros' first hit in extra innings. So, yeah, they went, 7 innings without getting a hit at all.
So let's go to the bottom of the 9th, because big plays here. Altuve can't handle a hot grounder over the middle. So this one, not only was he bad at the plate, but he had some really good fielding moments earlier in this series, but that could have been huge because it hits him right in the glove. I think he would have had a good chance because it was hit so hard, even though it was up the middle and he had to backhand. He had a good chance there. And it wasn't an error there, but that sets up this. There's a Yuli and Pena play where they combined to make a great out on a tough grounder to first base. It was nearly a double play. If Yuli could get back to first in time, it might have been close. And Presley then hits a guy. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes.
Haniger. Yeah, Haniger got hit by a pitch there.
Yeah, I forgot to write down the name, but he hits a guy, but then escapes with Santana, a strikeout of Santana, who, man, he had some tough at bats this series. I can't say enough about what Santana was doing for those guys. Yeah,
you certainly can. I know he's 36, and I know they're paving the way for a young prospect whose name I can't think of to kind of take his place. But Santana's been around, and he took it to a full count before he had the strikeout. So he had a fairly tough at bat, but didn't get the job done for them.
Yeah, Presley then caused a fly out to end the inning, but Presley, it's been a little bit rough, but he's escaping everything for now, and he didn't look great the last couple of months of the season. I just don't feel like he's quite right. He's probably the worst of your top 5 relievers. Brian Abreu has pitched fantastic. Neris has been great. So these guys have all looked really solid. Presley's really the one guy that worries you a little bit, and especially because he's the closer.
He is, but I wouldn't say, at least at this point, that he makes me Ken Giles nervous or Roberto Osuna nervous, or some of these other relievers that, my gosh, they load the bases with 1 out or something, and you're sure the game's going to be over, and somehow they wiggle out of it. I wouldn't say he's to that point yet, but yeah, he does make you a little bit nervous when he goes out there.
All right, let's go to. Was there anything between there and the top of the 16th, Stephen? Because I don't have anything.
I know, really nothing that stands out. Like I said, it was until the 16th that, the Astros were held without a hit until Bregman's single. And, then things, went on from there. Tucker got a walk. But once again, they got out, then the big catch, of course, in that inning from Guriel, who lines out to Rodriguez, who definitely saved the day, at least at that point. And then Diaz pops out. And then wouldn't you know, Robert, the first batter that comes up in the bottom of the 16th is Rodriguez. And I'm just so nervous sitting there thinking, of course, he's not going to hit a home run to end this thing after making a great catch. Is he?
Yeah, no, a lot of times you just thought, okay, this is where they're going to end it. This is where something's going to happen. And you know what? Luis Garcia, it never felt like it was even close to being in peril with the way he was pitching. I mean, he just was so on his game, and his location was magnificent.
Yeah, it was. And as I mentioned, his velocity was something else. And, he got behind a few batters, but it was never in the situation where you thought, uh-oh, he's going to get in trouble. And I think he threw at least 65 pitches. So he basically got a start in today, Robert. That's how long he went.
Also, I should say he Roger Clemens did. I meant to use that
pretty much, yeah,
analogy.
He did.
Because that was what happened. Clemens went, I think, what was it, 4 innings in the 18-inning game?
Yeah, he went 4, right.
And yeah, Garcia went 5 innings in that one.
5, right.
And actually, I thought there's two things. I thought of Clemens, and I also thought of our old friend Charlie Morton, who had a real rough outing with the Braves, and the Braves got kicked out of the playoffs, and kind of glad about that today. But Charlie came in to start this one, and he gave up 3. But I think of Charlie when I think of what Garcia did, because that was just the way Morton just shut things down for 5 innings during the 7th game of the World Series.
Yeah, and of course, McCullers was the one who pitched that game, Robert. And what did he go, 5 innings? Maybe not quite 5 innings. And then Morton came in, finished the rest of the game. I mean, yeah, that's reminiscent. Exactly. That is a perfect point of what Garcia did today.
We skipped over one guy. Richard Sanchez reminds us in the comments, because Hunter Brown, kid, comes in and he deals, and he looked good. Even
he pitched 3 innings, I believe. Yeah,
overcame a real bad ball strike call at one point that looked right over the middle, pretty much.
But, you know what? Yeah. You know what Marvin Hudson did, though? Did you see what Marvin Hudson did on that particular call? He kind of tapped his chest, looked back at Brown, and said, "Sorry about that. I messed that up." I don't know if you saw that, but it's very rare that an umpire does that. I mean, Marvin Hudson had a pretty rough day at the plate. He was getting it from both sides, but at the very least, he did own up to his mistake. Not that it mattered, and at least for the Astros, it's a good thing it didn't matter.
I didn't catch that. That was a good catch by you. And I tell you what, Hunter Brown was somebody that I said was going to make a difference a couple of months ago. I did a little Robert rant on YouTube, and I put it up on TikTok so everybody could see it. And I said, Hunter Brown is going to be in the playoffs, and he is going to be a difference maker, I think, for the Astros come playoff time, because of his electric arm. And the reason that they could use him in the playoffs was, even though he's pitched all year long, he's gone between starting and relieving. So he was pretty fresh. And then he comes up with the Astros, and he he mostly comes out of the bullpen, except for those 2 early starts. And I mean, it was great managing of Hunter Brown's season by the Astros.
Yeah, absolutely. And I stand corrected. It looks like in my notes, Robert, he only pitched 2 innings. And I kind of thought, maybe they could leave him out there for at least another inning, maybe even 2, because he is stretched out enough as a starter that he could have given you 1 or 2 more innings. But, they elected to go with Garcia, and obviously that was the right call. But, and the poise that Hunter Brown shows, and, the Mariners had 2 rookie pitchers too. They had George Kirby, and then they had Matt Brash, I think his name is. It's amazing the rookies that are coming into baseball, on both sides and a lot of teams. Hunter Brown is one of them. He's just come in and shown such poise. Nothing seems to rattle him.
And you know what? Before we close anything out in this show, and we've still got some stuff to talk about, we're going to come back to obviously the moment. But Stephen, I tell you what, the Mariners are going to be difficult for years to come with this pitch. If they can keep these pitchers with this, because their starting pitching in this series was fantastic. Kirby was great, and Logan was great. I mean, Castillo, we know what he can do.
Yeah.
So I mean, those 3 guys just shut down if it wasn't for the bullpen, the Astros wouldn't have won this series. They basically got into the bullpen and did most of their damage against those guys.
Well, that's right. But, the thing is, even the Mariners bullpen is pretty good, Robert. The Astros bullpen is the best in the majors, but the Mariners bullpen was pretty good too. I think, they were the 4th best bullpen in the American League. So their starting pitching, as you mentioned, is great. Their bullpen is pretty good. We do think that. I mean, look at the Braves. We thought, they signed all these rookies to extended contracts, and now they're sitting at home watching the rest of the playoffs. You never know, but you have to think. I mean, Seattle making the playoffs for the first time, maybe they're going to get on a roll. And if that's the case, the Astros are going to have some competition finally in the AL West, perhaps.
We had a little beef with our Astros fans not making noise and showing up really in game 2. And it could be argued that they weren't exactly great in game 1 either. Stephen, you got to comment on watching the Mariners fans and what you saw from them compared to the Astros fans?
Well, yeah, I may have started a little stir on Twitter, I think, when I said, hey, the Seattle fans are showing the Astros fans what it's all about, with them getting loud before the game even starts and keeping up before anything happens. I mean, look, I understand, it's the first time in 21 years that they've made the playoffs. Of course, the place is going to be rocking. I get that. But look, how many World Series have the New York Yankees won? Plenty. Well, you don't see their fans sitting on their hands at Yankee Stadium. They're going to be loud and boo the hell out of you. They're going to be raucous. And I'm not saying the Astros fans are Yankees fans, but come on, you got to get into it. And now that they have advanced, you just got to, I want to see better things from the Astros crowd overall and get Minute Maid Park rocking. Because let me tell you, that both sides were feeling it today. The adrenaline that was pumping through that ballpark. And it didn't surprise me that the fans were the way they were today. And the fact that nobody left, because the game, no matter how long it went, was still an exciting game. But yeah, that's how I felt, Robert. I just felt like the Astros fans could take some lessons maybe to get a bit of a jump start from the Seattle fans that, look, it doesn't matter how many years in a row you've made the playoffs. You only have one World Series. Let's keep it going. Let's keep rolling and get into it for your team.
Yeah, and the point, again, we're going to emphasize this because some people will think, well, we're saying the Astros fans aren't cheering. That's not what we're saying. We're saying the Mariners fans were cheering to try to get their team going, and the Astros fans don't understand that you, as part of your home field advantage, you push your team forward. You try to make something happen.
It's creating an atmosphere, Robert. That's what it's about. It's creating an environment, an intimidating atmosphere or a raucous atmosphere, whatever adjective you want to put to it. That's what it's called. It's not waiting until something happens and then you jump up and get on the bandwagon, just like you wait for the team, to make the playoffs before you start showing up. Well, that's one thing, but that's what it's about. It's about creating an atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing is just I just get so frustrated because, we sort of sit on our hands and we're like, okay, well, we'll do something now. Then I'll cheer, and it's been that way for far too long with all of Houston teams. And especially during the regular season, you get it. It's hard, but during the postseason, I mean, my goodness, it's baseball postseason, and every pitch counts, and every at bat counts. And if you didn't know it, you know it now after watching 18 innings and what's happened in the last 5 days. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get it. There's 81 games in the regular season, like you said, but when it becomes playoff time, anything can happen. As you can see from a game like today, no matter how long it would have gone, how many fans do you think would have left, Robert, if it had been at Minute Maid Park in this game? I don't know. Maybe not many, especially if you look back on the history of how some of those games turned out, but it does make you wonder. So I just want to see a little more enthusiasm from the fans. That's all.
All right, let's get the Astros fans involved right now.
Go Astros!
Here come the Astros.
Oh, it's one of the great fight songs.
Love it.
Here come the Astros with winning on their mind. Here come the Astros.
There you go. There's a little atmosphere for you. Go.
So which fight song do you think is better, Robert? Go Astros or Houston Oilers? Houston Oilers #1.
Oh,
there's one for you.
That's even a little bit more emotion for me, but that's still the greatest of all time, just because I think it's so connected with everything about that team.
I agree. This is getting there, man. It's getting close.
Astros #1. I tell you what, we this perfect music to lead into it. Let me fade it out, because Jeremy Pena comes up in the 18th inning, and Stephen, he has hit so many big home runs all season long for this team, and we saw him in big situations. And what did you say last time we talked about Jeremy Pena? You said, was it Carlos who?
Carlos who? Yeah, exactly. And let me tell you, Jeremy Pena got that thing to a full count before he hit that home run too. I mean, he has shown such patience at the plate too. He's, as I said, in game 1 of this series, he looked a little bit lost the first couple at bats, but he found it. And man, that homer, you kept waiting for somebody. I mean, I kept thinking, well, at least set up Alvarez, set up Yordan one more time, Jeremy. Come on, just set him up one more time, and let's see if Yordan can come through. Jeremy says, oh, no. You know what? I'm tired of setting this guy up. I'm tired of setting the table. I'm ready to eat. And he ate. And he sent it out.
Yeah, Goyo Falcone says something that I don't think I agree with. As happy as I am about Pena right now, his comment is that he's got more upside than Correa. I like Correa, and he did a lot for Houston, but letting him walk was the right decision. Now, I agree with that part. It was the right decision, because, yeah, he overpriced himself. It looks like he's having a hard time finding that money that he wants. And now I don't think the Twins keep him. I agree with that, but more upside than Carlos Correa, Stephen. The thing that Correa he's just as good as Pena has been defensively in this playoffs. Correa, I mean, it's maybe the best shortstop that I've seen defensively. And that even goes to somebody like Ozzie Smith, because Ozzie didn't have the arm that Correa, he didn't have the reach. The length. I mean, Ozzie was an incredible shortstop. And maybe for consistency throughout his career, you can't find anybody much better than Ozzie Smith. But Correa, because of that arm, it just separates him from so many shortstops that I've seen over the years, the combination. And he was really consistent, and you could count on him. And except for that first season in 2015 that the Astros were in the playoffs in the Royals series, which that big, huge era that he made in that series against Kansas City. After that, basically, there was no major flaws in his defense, nothing even close that I can recall in the last, 7 years that he was with Houston, Stephen, 6 years?
Yeah, 7 years. Well, yeah, it's going to be hard to top, Robert. If you're talking about having more upside than Correa, that's going to be awfully hard to top. And it's funny, we forget about that error in 2015. I totally forgot about it till you brought it up, just because he's done so many great things since then. Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Pena, let's not forget, Carlos Correa did something else, especially in the 2020 season, in the postseason, when the Astros shouldn't have even made the playoffs. You saw the leadership that Carlos Correa took hold on the field and even off the field. He was the voice that finally spoke up after the cheating scandal, when baseball began playing again. And it was Carlos Correa who spoke up. And on the field, many times, when the pitcher was rattled, especially when Framber Valdez would get rattled or somebody else, it was Correa who would jump out there first. So, Jeremy Pena, I certainly think he has a lot of upside, and he very well may be as good as Correa. It's still too early to tell. It's just too much of a small sample size. But Carlos Correa was a leader as much as he was a great defensive player and a very good, timely offensive player. So it's good to think about, though, the fact that we do have a guy that is replacing Correa. And you remember, Robert, last year when the Astros decided not to make that final offer to Correa right before the spring training started, you were pretty upset about it. And I was surprised, but maybe the Astros knew something we didn't, that they were fully confident that Jeremy Pena could step in, and it might take a little time, but they were worried, and they weren't worried at all about letting Carlos Correa walk, obviously.
Well, you said the one thing that I think goes above everything is Pena's got to turn into the leader that Correa is, and that's huge. And another part, like I said, is the defense. Now, offensively, can Pena get better than Correa? Absolutely. He looks like he has that potential. If he ever figures out a way to lay off that slider, then he can be as good, potentially even better than Correa. Correa would be up and down. There were years that he had with the Astros where he was, hovering around 900 OPS. And then there would be years where he was like high 700s. And,
and don't forget the back problems too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that doesn't have anything to do with potential. It just means that, and Correa, he seems to be okay right now the last couple of years, and we'll see if he can keep that going. But there are factors that Pena is going to have to figure out before he gets there. I mean, I don't see quite the potential that Correa has, but maybe he'll surprise me. He's surprised me a little bit so far, at least with his hitting. I'm pretty surprised at what he's been able to do at this point in his career. And Stephen, before I go on, the news just keeps getting better, because while we were talking all that stuff about Jeremy Pena, the Yankees just got walked off by the Cleveland Guardians. So they're now down 2-1 in their series, and they're going to have to work harder. And if they make it, they're going to be a little bit more wiped out. And the Guardians, if they make it, well, I think that's somebody the Astros will know what to do with. Don't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about this, Robert. The Padres Dodgers, the Padres have the Dodgers on the ropes. The Dodgers could be out. The Braves are out. The Yankees could be out. I mean, what kind of a postseason? The networks will be having nightmares if that happens.
Yeah, Stephen, I as soon as you said Padres, I'm holding up the Padres cap that I just got a couple of months ago. I got one of the old school caps, and I love the Padres because the great old school caps, beautiful stadium, beautiful city. I've never had any real thing against the Padres, even though we played them in the NL West for years. There was never
don't
much.
Forget they have Joe Musgrove.
Yeah, well, he didn't make anybody happy the other
No,
day.
He did not.
By kind of not diffusing the whole Astros cheating thing and stuff. But I just, for me, like the Pena home run, Stephen, I don't know where you put this, but it's hard to say it's up there with Chris Burke, because that got the Astros their first ever playoff series that they had won. I think, isn't that right? If it was 2004.
Yeah, it was the Brave series that got them into the NLCS in 2005.
Yeah, it was. Oh, was it the 2005? So, but was that the first series they won, or they had won in 2004?
Yeah, then they faced the Cardinals.
Okay, so in 2004, they had not got to the NL. I think
they didn't quite get there because I think they lost to the Braves. That was the Carlos Beltran year, of course. But yeah, 2005 is when Chris Burke did his and sent them to the NLCS. It's hard to imagine, that the Astros, they were in the National League at one point, but yeah, I'd say Burke's homer was bigger, at least to some extent. I think what really makes this big, Robert, is just the fact that, Jeremy Pena is a rookie. Now, Chris Burke was not, he certainly wasn't a multi-year veteran, but it was just one of the least likely
Yeah.
Players you would think would come up and hit a home run would be Chris Burke.
Oh yeah. Nobody thought that, like for Pena or Burke, I'm looking at just the big picture. And really the reason why it was bigger is it got you to you did something that you hadn't done. Plus you look at the Jeremy Pena deal. We might have to just wait to see what happens with this season, because
that's right.
You got to win the next series. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, and you got to do it.
Yeah, it is. And look, Jeremy Pena's he hit a walk-off home run, I think, earlier in the season, and he had 22 home runs. So it's not like he doesn't hit the long ball. Chris Burke just didn't have that many opportunities. But I think with Jeremy Pena, it's not that you expected him to hit that home run, but it's not all that surprising considering, when you look at his numbers, he does have over 20 home runs, and he did have a couple of timely ones throughout the season.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be just a lot of smoke and no fire for the Astros in this game.
There was a lot of smoke. There were fires in Canada about 3 hours. There was a lot of smoke in Seattle, but fortunately, it came off the Astros bats at the right time.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going with that whole thing. But yeah, exactly. Before we get going, Stephen, do you want to play the Yankees? Would you rather play the Yankees just because, you love the rivalry and you're like, well, let's shut up Yankee fans because Astro fans love to do that?
I wouldn't mind. I would never mind playing the Yankees, especially, this year. I mean, if you can go by records, the Astros owned the Yankees just like they owned the Mariners. So if you want to keep that going, I'm always happy to go up to Yankee Stadium and shut those fans up. And, I'm a little worried though, is, they booed Altuve and he came through there, but the way he's hitting right now, I'm not sure if he can do that at Yankee Stadium, but let's hope that he can. I don't know. I'm always nervous about playing teams like the Guardians who get hot at just the right time. Same with the Phillies.
Nothing to lose. Yeah.
Nothing to lose. Yeah. They make me more nervous than a team like the Yankees because the Yankees are going to bring. Exactly what they've got. But with the Guardians, you don't. So, yeah, I think, Robert, in thinking about it, I would much rather play the Yankees than the Guardians just for that very reason.
Yeah, you look around and you go, oh, isn't this fun? The Dodgers might lose. The Yankees might lose. The Braves are already out. This could be like an easy path. But you were like, wait. I don't want to think that because it's baseball.
No. I mean, look what the Braves did to the Astros last year. And, just so many other times when it looked like the Astros could claim it and they haven't. So no, I'm not going to rest easy till that final game is played. But yeah, I think I'd much rather face the Yankees because you at least know what you've got.
Let's talk about going forward because the Astros have to work on things. Obviously, Altuve's got to get it together and he's got to get rolling. Verlander, I mean, two of your big guns didn't show up this series and you got to get them going if you're going to win the championship. Number two, Jordan and Tucker had their biggest weaknesses exposed by the Mariners in this series. Not really this series, but in this last game because, I should say 2 games because in 18 innings, they had all sorts of issues hitting high fastballs, Stephen, and that killed them in this one. And if you watch Jordan enough, like that high and end fastball, if there's one place in the strike zone you can get him, it's just you got to get him consistently to be able to locate that pitch. But if you do,
that's right.
That's a way to get him out. And he was having problems with any high fastball. And I just thought, I don't know about you, I just thought there wasn't much of an adjustment by the Astros hitters for most of the extra innings. They kept trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. They weren't going the other way. There was like, how about just laying down a bunt and getting something going that way? Or, try to go opposite field or take a few pitches. But it was like every guy was walking up there trying to hit a 3-run homer. And it's like, man, that's not how you win these type of games.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of it, Robert, is that, the Astros kind of went out of their game plan of what they usually do, is that how patient they are at the plate and how they make pitchers throw pitches and throw good pitches. They were swinging at pitches, high up in the zone, out of the zone. Altuve did that several times, but a lot of the other guys did too. And I think as the game went on, it almost looked as if they were trying to get this thing over with. Let's take one swing. Maybe we can end it right here, even though the Mariners, of course, had a final at-bat since they were the home team. But I kind of got that impression too, especially as it got into extra innings. They just kept – they were swinging at first pitches and just swinging way too much. And that probably explains why they had so many swinging strikeouts. I think just about every single one of their strikeouts was swinging.
Anything else that I missed before we take off?
Well, I don't think so, other than just another classic game that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time. And now we've at least got a few days to recuperate. I do want to see Justin Verlander bounce back. I'm sure he's going to start game one, I would imagine, against whomever it's going to be. But man, it's just good that we got through this game, Robert, because I sure was sweating bullets.
And just a message to Dusty Baker. Let's just go with Aledmus Diaz and let's go with Chas McCormick and settle on those two guys because they're the best at making contact and potentially getting a hit of the DH candidates and the center field candidates.
Yeah, let's do that. And then look, if you're not going to, I mean, you could even throw David Hensley into the mix. I would almost rather they put him in there than Trey Mancini at this point. I was thinking about that earlier today too, Robert, look, if you're not going to play Aledmus, at least give David Hensley a shot at that DH position. What more have you got to lose? And let's not forget, the person we haven't talked about that's missing as a result of all this is Michael Brantley. I mean, how much of a difference would he have made in all that decision-making if he were in the lineup?
True. But I feel like the big benefit was that they knew he was pretty much out from the trade deadline, so they could make the Mancini trade. And, every team has a guy that's injured typically. You don't get to the playoffs and everybody's 100% and everybody can play. And you miss some big guys. No matter who you are. And I feel lucky that the worst that we've been hit this year is Michael Brantley to this point, after not having Verlander and McCullers and Jordan and some of these, and basically Bregman last year, which they didn't have.
Yeah. It's just a fact of, how you make your decisions with your outfield and your DH is kind of what I was referring to.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I want to remind people also that if you're out there listening, that if you go to our playlist on the YouTube channel, look for an Astros History and Memories playlist. You'll find clips from some of the nearly 300 interviews that we've done over 9 years. You can hear Lance McCullers, speaking of him, Correa, Springer, J.R. Richard, Jimmy Wynn, Steve Sparks, Bill Brown, Todd Callis, Julian Morales, and on and on and on. Don't forget that Stephen and I will be back for Astros Live post games through the entire postseason. If you like it, tell your friends. We're trying to gain a bigger audience, and we love what we're doing with this. And we've been covering Houston sports for between the two of us. It's been a long time, and between the two of us, like I said, it's I think 60 years. In sports journalism. And, I've been covering Houston sports for 20 years. We both born and raised in Houston. We want the teams to win. We're rooting for them, but we're going to give you our objective thoughts on what's happening.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be enjoying this one, Robert, and can't wait for the next one. And I'm going to go have my post-game pizza right now. So I'm all set.
Well, thank you so much, everybody out there, for joining us, and we'll talk to you real soon. Go Astros.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, you can support the show by subscribing on YouTube and commenting on the videos. Listen to Houston Sports Talk on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and Google. Don't forget to tell a friend and share our show on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.